where the former president and liberation stalwart himself, Jacob Zuma, has been expelled, well, not expelled, suspended from the African National Congress. Now, here's the thing, folks. Apparently, as I've said for years and years and years, with the African National Congress in South Africa, you can commit crimes, you can commit the most heinous crimes, you can steal from the public purse, you can embarrass the country, you can embarrass the party. But one thing you can't do with the African National Congress is show disloyalty. Showing disloyalty to the ANC results in action. The only time the ANC is spurred to action is when its members are disloyal. If you don't behave in Parliament, you lose your ministerial. If you don't vote the way you're told to. If you create a new political party and say that you're still in your own party, like Jacob Zuma did, and then campaign for the other political party, well, then you can be suspended. But breaking news out of South Africa, where Jacob Zuma has been suspended by the African National Congress. Now, he's not been expelled, and there were a lot of debates apparently in the NEC, the National Executive Committee, about this. This is tearing apart the ANC's senior leadership as they discuss what to do and how to do this to Jacob Zuma. People clearly angry and frustrated with Jacob Zuma's behavior inside the party and his actions outside the party with this new political party called Umkhonto we Sizwe, stealing the name of the armed wing of the African National Congress from the so-called liberation struggle. Umkhonto we Sizwe is a phrase that means the spear of the nation. Now, this political party has tried to co-opt the symbols of Umkhonto we Sizwe, and that's the military veterans in the organization that was part of the liberation struggle for the ANC. But Zuma has really torqued off the ANC, and the National Executive Committee has had a decision they reached today. They're going to suspend him, summarily suspend Jacob Zuma as a member. Now, not expel, that may be coming in the future, but right now it's just suspend. According to NEC sources that have told Times Live, the meeting opted to go for the long route of taking him through a disciplinary hearing rather than simply an immediate expulsion. So rather than expel him today, they are suspending him and going through a disciplinary hearing. Now, leaders in the National Executive Committee apparently were torn about this because they're worried about the election year. This is a huge election year in South Africa and what this will do. But Jacob Zuma has already tainted the election. Now, a lot of people, including some people on other analytical programs, have said that MK would simply align with the ANC after the election and all be forgiven. Well, I think that argument was premature, and I said so at the time. I think that, in fact, Jacob Zuma's actions informing MK and his actions counter to the interest of the African National Congress will make it very difficult for a reunion. In the past, we saw Terra Lakota leave the ANC, forming COPE, the Congress of the People, co-opting a name from a political movement back in the 50s and 60s. But the Terra Lakota movement never really realigned with the ANC. So what will happen with MK? Well, Zuma is supposedly having contravened the ANC's constitution, which states that any person who joins or supports any other organization or party other than the ANC and its alliance partners, the Congress, South African Trade Unions, COSATU, the South African Communist Party, or SANCO, or any other organization whose aims, policies, and objectives are contrary to the ANC. So, if in fact MK is not contrary to the interests of the ANC, and it is simply a vehicle that will ally with the ANC after the election, this sort of undermines that argument some analysts are giving us. Now, one member of the National Executive Committee said, "We pulled the trigger, but we didn't empty the chamber." Okay, that's very poor euphemism there. If you pull the trigger, well, I guess it's okay. You don't release the trigger. So you cock the handle. You haven't pulled the trigger. If you pull the trigger, you fire the round, and then you empty the chamber. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah. Now, they chose this disciplinary route to take the long route around this. In endorsing the MK party, Zuma said he could not support the African National Congress of Cyril Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa has really driven a nail into the heart of the African National Congress with his inept and corrupt leadership of the party since he took over. Of course, the lunacy of white liberals in South Africa and fools in South Africa cheering Ramaphoria when Zuma left office, saying a new era had come to strike down corruption. The era of state capture is over. When in fact, if we look at the events since Cyril Ramaphosa ascended to the presidency of the African National Congress in December 2017 and then became president of the Republic in 2018, early 2018, state capture is still with us. It's still there. In fact, it's even more pronounced today than it was back then. What's being pilfered from South Africans is massive. The PPE scandals, the theft of state resources continue unabated, not to mention personal corruption or alleged corruption, and events like Munir Palapala's $580,000 of undeclared money smuggled into South Africa and then stolen from Minir Palapala Cyril Ramaphosa's game ranch, and then perversion of justice and misuse of government resources, hunting down the suspected thieves, and purportedly being tortured, according to media reports, in conjunction with Namibian authorities who want nothing to do with this after discovering that their police were in collusion with South Africa's police. Now, we need to add to that the fact that the South African VIP Protection Unit, part of the South African Police Service, is responsible for securing the residences of the president and many others in the government around the country, including his ranch at Palapala. In the fiscal year covering that date of that theft, they reported that not a single incident occurred at any residence which they protected. Not a single incident. So they covered up the theft at Palapala. And if nothing else, there are crimes in that event, as well as the currency evasion here. Now, the debate on Zuma's fate is said to have gripped the NEC meeting, which is believed to have heard views of members calling for the immediate removal and expulsion of Jacob Zuma from the African National Congress, while others argued that kicking him out would only make him a martyr and a victim, which would get him more support. And that's a fair argument. Now, those against are said to have argued that it would be not wise to suspend him for the reasons I just said. Yeah, so the ANC is expected to announce its decision to expel him potentially down the road, but they'll do an investigation now. That's what they're claiming. But the news today breaking out of South Africa is former president, the man who oversaw the state capture era with his deputy by his side, the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, Jacob Zuma, because of his actions in supporting an upstart new party, which appropriated the name from the armed wing of the ANC in Kontwisizwe. Because of his support for that party and his comments against the ANC in the upcoming election, has been summarily suspended. And they will begin an investigation, taking the long road to determine whether he should be expelled from the party altogether. Well, listen, folks, once again, I've said it, with Lazuli House, it doesn't matter if you embarrass the country. It doesn't matter if you steal from people. It doesn't matter. Zandile Gumeda, 168 charge corruption against her, and yet to be convicted or thoroughly prosecuted. Ace Magashule, the Vereda dairy farm scandal, which goes back years and years. Ace Magashule, the asbestos tender in the Free State, which goes back years and years and years. Still waiting for resolution of that. Unbelievable. Paul Matsushile being revealed almost daily with additional alleged corruption by News 24 in a very serious investigative journalistic effort by News 24. Cyril Ramaphosa, Palapala. Jacob Zuma, the arms scandal. The ANC Travelgate, Oilgate. The list goes on and on. The PPE scandals. It's unbelievable. The African National Congress has become exactly what racists said would happen if majority rule happened in South Africa. And that's a tragedy of epic proportions. Because it's untrue that black Africans cannot govern themselves. They can. But not when they're led by criminals and kleptocracies like the African National Congress. It's a sad situation. A lot of people sitting back and going, I told you so. Well, you did tell people so, but your basis for telling was probably unjust or invalid. Excuse me. So there you have it, folks. You can do anything you want in the ANC. Just don't betray it. If you betray the ANC, they suddenly wake up and are concerned about your actions. Jacob Zuma, take note. He will, of course, run around and now play the martyr, the victim, in this episode when he's the instigator of all this. He's looking and searching for relevancy. He got out of his prison sentence with his terminal illness 3 years ago. Apparently it wasn't that terminal. The man's an octogenarian now, and he's getting along just fine. So apparently it wasn't terminal. He had Sheikh Shibiritis, because apparently the same thing happened to his former financial advisor, who Judge Hilary Squires determined was corrupt, sent to prison, and then he was released for compassionate reasons because he had a terminal illness well over a decade ago. I'd like to meet his physician, and hopefully I'd survive just as long with that terminal illness. Unbelievable what happens in South Africa. But you know what, folks? It's not South Africa alone. It's the entire frickin' world. We see the same garbage right here in America. Unbelievable. Just saw Ilhan Omar running around proudly proclaiming she's a Somali first, and then a Muslim. Not an American. Now, people say she's taken out of context as she was talking to a group of people, and she was talking about people being Somalis, but she was making her point quite clear that she's not an American, although she's a member in our Congress. That's what passes for governance in the world today. Unbelievable. Well, folks, there you go. Jacob Zuma is suspended from the African National Congress. I'll catch you shortly on the news program. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to leave a comment behind and a like if you don't mind. God bless and have a good day. Be safe out there. You notice I'm wearing a jacket today. The temperature is quite low and it's windy out here. Take care, folks.